I'm happy to introduce Ann Selzer, who was part of the 1982-83 fellowship class. Ann did her fellowship in the office of Congresswoman Barbara Mikulski and is now the president of Selzer Company. So my first question for you, Ann, is how would you describe your fellowship experience in a few words or a phrase?
I think there are three words that come most immediately to my mind when I think about that time, and one is challenging. It was all new and it was big stakes compared to what I had been doing, that it was new. It was a whole new experience and a lot to learn very, very quickly. And then finally, by the end, rewarding. And that is that there was legislation that I initiated that eventually became law. So a kid from Iowa can go to Washington and write a bill that becomes a law. And that just kind of gives you a sense of accomplishment, which has lasted a long time.
Absolutely, I can definitely imagine. My next question is, what skills and opportunities that you received as a fellow do you think were the most useful for the rest of your career?
One of the things very clearly was to set a goal and then start working on it. And like now. So pick up the phone and make a call and get things rolling. I was assigned to the press secretary and I had childcare as my legislative area, but I learned a lot about speech writing and how to make a good speech. And those have served me very, very well.
That's great. So my next question is, what is your fondest memory while working as a fellow on Capitol Hill?
I recall walking down the hall of Cannon House Office Building behind two congresswomen. One had just been named as a national co-chair for Walter Mondale's presidential campaign, and the other was, a very well-respected congresswoman, and she turned to the one and said, "Oh, I think Mondale's going to name you as his vice president." And the one, and she happened to be the congresswoman I worked for, this is Barbara Mikulski, when she was still on the House side, turned to Jerry Ferraro and said, "No, I think you look more the part." And Jerry Ferraro said to Barbara Mikulski, I'd rather have Supreme Court." And I just filed away this little incident because a few months later, it was Jerry Ferraro who was asked to be Walter Mondale's vice president. And, it's a little secret that I kept, is that what she really wanted was Supreme Court. And it's just emblematic that when you're in the halls of Congress, you're in the midst of history happening all the time. You might not know it at the moment, but it's there and you're part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my next question is, why do you think opportunities such as the fellowship are so important for young women?
You do what you know. So if you've never been exposed to politics, how would you know that is something you'd like to do and you might be good at it? If you've never been exposed to, in my case, how a speech gets written and delivered, how would you know that might be something that you have something to offer in terms of those skill sets? If you've never thought about writing legislation, if you have nothing in your daily life that speaks to you that way, you wouldn't know that you could actually do it and get it done. So I think having that opportunity for people who have even the slightest itch to be involved with government, to be involved in politics, it's such a fantastic and comfortable way to get that exposure and to learn a lot.
Definitely, thank you. And so my final question for you is, how has female leadership inspired you?
I learned so much from the women leaders that I was around, and just I think the most impressive thing was to notice and be aware of the small ways in which they were managing their worlds to work to their advantage. So rather than just leave things as they were, because they've always been that way, they would take sometimes small little steps that were symbolically important.
Well, thank you so much, Ann, for sharing your stories from your time as a fellow and your continuous support of the fellowship. We are so grateful to have you as our featured fellow this month. Thank you.